With our goals defined, we will now propose services to ensure success in those areas. Some things to think about when you're writing services. Service time can be provided by paraprofessionals under the supervision of a special education teacher. However, that supervision should involve frequent check-ins to discuss progress and provide new instructional plans and materials. If you write that the service time is going to be equal to the entire block of a co-taught class, then that means the student would only be getting education from the special education teacher, even though they're in a gen ed setting, and that's not what we want. Just having the special education teacher in the room does not mean that the student needs to be receiving service for the entire time. Instead, write your services this way. List them for the amount of time that you know a special education teacher needs to give specially designed instruction to that student in order for them to achieve the goal that the IEP team agreed to. Some students will need to receive 100% of their content area instruction from a special education teacher, and that's all right, but then that must be listed as being delivered in a special education setting. In terms of labeling the services that you're given, they should be labeled according to the skill area that they are targeting, not the course name or anything else. So academic services fall into 3 categories: reading, writing, or math. Functional services fall into the categories of behavior, organization, or social and emotional skills. You don't need to put any leader in front of it, such as academic or executive function or anything of that nature, and you should not list course areas like history or science as part of the name of the service. Related services can be labeled this way. It's okay to work on a goal that you've made for the student in more than one class, but you don't have to write separate services to do so. If you know that a student needs specialized instruction different from what their peers are getting to succeed in reading, for example, during both language arts and social studies time, then you can propose a reading goal and a single reading service. On the placement page, you explain in which classes that service will be delivered. Next, we'll talk about supplementary aids and services, especially accommodations and modifications. Regarding accommodations, there's no need to put an accommodation on the IEP just because it would help. Instead, accommodations should only be listed if they are necessary for that student to get access to the general curriculum. Think about what that student would need to access the general curriculum and make progress while a special education teacher is not around, since accommodations apply in all class settings. Be specific when you're writing these. If the student needs extended time to complete assignments, try to specify how much more time and whether you want that to apply to all assignments or just class assignments, homework, or summative assessments. Try to avoid giving the accommodation of reduced assignments and shortened assignments because few students really need every assignment in every content area to be reduced in order for them to succeed. Instead, you can have a conversation with the relevant general education teachers to discuss how the student can best demonstrate their mastery. You can put an accommodation for reduced assignments and specify it for a particular class or particular type of assignment. Or you can try to get at the student's need in other ways by listing an accommodation for alternative assessments. Finally, modifications are significant alterations to what a student will be exposed to in the curriculum and should only be provided as appropriate. Finally, we'll speak about assessments. Make sure that all the assessment types and all the assessments that are significant to the student are listed in the IEP, meaning the classroom, division, and state level assessments. Again, consider accommodations and make sure that they are what the student needs to succeed in those assessment types. Also, try to specify where you want those accommodations to be delivered. And think, if you want a student to be tested a certain way on the SOL, it probably makes sense to have them tested in those same conditions during the rest of the year. So make sure that your testing accommodations are applied in all testing types. A few final thoughts. The stranger test means that if you won the lottery and left your job tomorrow, a stranger should be able to come in, pick up the IEP that you've written, and know exactly what the student's needs are and exactly what the plan is for meeting those needs. Try to write it as objectively as possible and in a way that is individual to the student so that any stranger could pick it up and be successful with that student. Try to get your drafts ready early so that they could be reviewed by a peer or by a department leader. Make sure you have a data collection system that's clear to you and clear to all the people that you're asking to participate in that system. And after you finish the student's annual review, go back and make sure that a copy of the new finalized IEP is given to every teacher who's working with the student. If your school is also using IEP at a glances, make sure that you update that and submit that to everyone who's working with the student as well. Thank you for your time and attention, and please feel free to reach out to anybody on this page if you have additional questions.